Well, welcome to another edition of Ask a Responsive Fundraiser, where we take your questions to a fundraising expert so that ultimately you can grow generosity. Today, we're taking your questions to Diana Hoyt. Diana, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to jump right in with the first question. With the generational shifts in giving patterns, what could we do to attract and retain younger donors? Are there ways that we can better communicate our mission to resonate with their values?
You know, I believe that most organizations would define a younger donor as being in their 20s and 30s. Okay. Maybe college age, but primarily we're talking 20 and 30-year-olds because they've got a job and they have money. So it's kind of a
Right.
target. Um, I think the keys to this question have to do with engagement and being personal. I think that age group spends a lot of time on their phone, uh, texting, those social media of different types. And what we do know is that's causing an isolation. So I think anything you can do to engage them personally.
Hmm.
I mean, we even hear things like send them mail because they don't get mail.
Yeah.
And they think it's kind of exciting to get an envelope in the mailbox,
Yeah.
So I think it's being more personal. And some of the things I thought about, well, volunteerism, and especially if you can bring them together as a group, you know, come and bring two of your friends or whatever. And so they're engaged in being able to volunteer. And I say, hear, feel, and see the mission,
Yeah.
which is huge. Um, so I think engaging them in an activity makes a huge, huge difference. Anything that will involve camaraderie and maybe have a social component. We're going to put together all these backpacks for kids, or we're going to fill up these boxes for people in need of food. And afterwards, hey, we're gonna just sit around and talk and you know have that kind of involvement. Um, I think one of the things that's important it is not having them become their buddies, but have a board member or a staff person there so they can just kind of give them a sense of the mission.
Yeah.
Not push it down because they don't want that because they'll back off. But just say, hey, are you enjoying this? Do you have any questions? Um, and so that's that personal, being personal. One of the things I volunteered for, I won't say the name of the organization. I volunteered and I left. Nobody asked me my name,
Mm.
my address, my phone number, nothing. And so you've got to do something to make sure you're capturing their information. And to me, one of the things you want to capture is how do they prefer to communicate?
Mm.
And then follow up by sending them a personalized thank you the way they want to be communicated to.
Yeah.
So you need them to hear that you need them to know you were hearing what they said. So those would be some of my thoughts. And follow that up a couple of weeks later with a survey, 3 to 5 questions. So again, you're keeping engaged with them, but also gathering information.
Yeah. That's helpful and some actionable things that people can take away. All right.
Mhm.
Question number 2. Recent conversations with our board have centered around increasing the resilience of our fundraising. Considering the current economic landscape and its impact on giving, what strategies can we adopt to maintain stability and grow in our fundraising efforts, even during downturns?
Okay, this is going to sound so boring, and I won't even apologize. I've been through a couple of downturns and et cetera with organizations. And the organizations I know that made it through that, and I even know a couple that during the recession of 2008, 2009, actually raised more money.
Wow.
Well, because one of the things that happens is people go, oh, well, we can't, things are bad. We can't. ask them for money, things are bad. That's when they're more likely to give more.
Mm.
I mean, look what happened in 2020 with the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
Fundraising shot up because people said, I'm okay, I can help. And they did. I mean, that was one of the highest years we've ever had of fundraising.
Yeah.
So the number one thing is keep fundraising. Don't back off, because you have people who need you
Mm.
and need those services, that they need to go to the art museum and have joy.
Yeah.
So just keep doing your job, which I don't understand why people quit that. They just say, oh, well, whatever. So that's number one. And the second thing is gratitude.
Mm.
I used to have a written policy that I gave to clients and did workshops on about donor recognition. And I've actually rewritten that to say donor gratitude policy, because it's not so much about recognizing them with a plaque or a name on the whatevers.
Right.
It's about simply saying thank you.
Mm.
And we keep saying that. We keep saying you've got to say thank you. I actually did a workshop a couple of weeks ago at a conference, and the lady said, well, isn't just that automatic thank you by email good enough? And I said, no,
Nope.
no, because a moron can do that. Or any other piece of software.
Right.
For you to sit down and have a letter, even though it's already in your computer and you spit it out with the right information. And I said, and you know what you have to do on top of that? Handwrite a note that says, thank you, your gift is appreciated.
Yeah.
And I've had EDs say to me, well, I just don't have time to do thank yous. It's like, if you don't do thank yous, you aren't going to have donors.
Right. Yeah.
I actually had an ED get mad at me because I said, you never thanked me for my last gift. And she said, well, I just don't have time. And you know what? She never got another gift.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So you've got to express gratitude. You have to do it fast. You have to do it with sincerity. You've got to make it personal.
Mm.
And the other question I always get asked is, well, what if it's only a check for $25? There are so many stories about donors who give small amounts and when they die, leave an organization millions of dollars.
Right.
Because the organization cared about them.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think also, if you have a client story that you can appropriately use in your solicitation information, even you may change the names, whatever, but if you can keep it to 3 to 5 sentences, because you want people to read it. And I think attaching a person to the mission just does wonders.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be my answer.
That's awesome. Very helpful. All right. Question number 3. One area that we want to grow in 2025 is how we incorporate stories into our donor engagement. So what techniques can we use to do this, to both highlight our mission and create a deeper connection with current and potential donors?
Okay. I love what I call VIP events. And everybody always goes, oh, that's your big donors. No, it can be a donor at any level. You can have a breakfast meeting. You can have a lunch meeting. You can have an online meeting. But ways to engage those donors. And it doesn't have to be a fancy big thing. If I was doing $5,000 and up donors, I might use a donor's home and keep it really personal. Or if it's an organization like a food bank or another type of organization, humane society, where people can actually go there, and simply have coffee and bagels. Um, do whatever you can to get a mix of donors together.
Mm.
We always think we have to also silo them, that the big donors are here and the medium donor and the little donors. Well, why can't they all be in the same room?
Sure.
Why can't they all learn from each other? And I think that nonprofits could go a long way to breaking down some of those silos, because these are all people who have the same values.
Yeah.
And so telling those stories. And so at a small VIP event, you can have a real conversation. And if you can, again, I would bring in a client, a recipient, somebody who adopted a dog, somebody who's no longer living on the street, somebody who was given medical care.
Mm.
There's so many ways, but if they can tell that story, and it doesn't have to be long and prolonged, just, a few minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, when I worked for nonprofits as a staff person, I went out with the team when we were doing HIV work, because I could then go back. I observed, I saw, I could go back and tell the donor, hey, I used to have a donor. I loved her dearly. And everywhere I went, she gave. I mean, this was like a bonding thing.
Yeah.
And, but every time I'd call her, she'd say, okay, who are we supporting now? And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I think inviting donors, prospects to your space as much as you can, and always having your story. That was one thing. I worked for a behavioral health organization, and it was a requirement of the board members that they had to go out with our HIV team or with this team or whatever team was going out, excuse me, on a project. And so they could observe themselves and tell the story of what they saw. So as much as you can bring your board up to that level,
yeah,
it really makes a difference. So they need to have their own story or be given enough stories that they can say, I didn't experience this, but this is what I was told.
Yeah.
So again, it gets back to stories, keeping them short and sweet. Have a special event, a VIP event, and it's special because you're bringing people together to learn.
Yeah.
And that's what it's really all about.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I think that's so helpful. And just even hearing those themes throughout all of your answers, really around personal connection and ensuring that happens. It's so crucial. So Diana, thanks so much for taking the time to share your wisdom and expertise today. We really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Have a good day.